For 3 long years, I craved revenge after discovering my wife's betrayal and infidelity. For 3 long years, I carried this knot in my stomach, this burning need to get back at my wife for stepping out on me. It all started the day I stumbled across proof that she had been sneaking around behind my back. Let us call her Carrie, though that is not her real name. After we had been married for 14 years and raised 3 kids together, I happened to glance at her work phone one afternoon. It was just a split second, one of those moments you do not think will mean anything, but it flipped my whole life upside down. A message lit up the screen, the kind of filthy text no married woman should be getting, let alone on a phone her job gave her. It was dirty, plain and simple, and the name attached to it? Perry. That name was right there in black and white. I met Carrie when I was 25 and she was 22. Back then, I was teaching high school, and she had just started working as a registered nurse. After our first kid was born, we made the decision together that she would stay home with the baby while I kept bringing home the paycheck. Money was always tight, so I took on extra duties at work, coaching a couple of sports teams just to bring in some extra cash. We managed. Slowly but surely, with a few raises here and there, I was able to quit coaching and put myself through a program to get my administrative credential. Not long after, I got promoted into school administration, right around the same time our youngest was heading off to preschool. That was when Carrie decided she was ready to go back to nursing. The thing about nursing jobs is they are always out there, but the good ones get snatched up fast. Carrie had to start over, working right alongside nurses half her age, pulling long shifts and back-to-back doubles. It wore her down. She asked her boss if there was any way she could move up, and they flat out told her that without a Bachelor of Science in Nursing degree, she was stuck where she was. At that point, all she had was a 2-year associate degree in nursing. I told her I had her back. Between preschool, after-school care, and my retired mom, who was always happy to lend a hand with the kids, I said we would make it work. It took her 3 years, but she got that degree, and sure enough, she moved into a better spot at the hospital. For a while, everything seemed good. With more money coming in, we finally bought ourselves a nice big house, splurged on some new cars, all the things we had dreamed about when we were younger and broke. I had moved up to a district-level job, so my schedule was a bit more flexible, and Carrie's shifts were more predictable too. Even with my occasional late nights, we were finally able to take those family trips we had always talked about back when we were young and broke and just daydreaming about the future. Years later, something small stuck out to me. Carrie was suddenly carrying 2 phones everywhere she went. When I asked, she told me the hospital had given her a work phone. It sounded reasonable enough. My district offered the same thing, though I had taken a phone stipend instead. I did not think anything of it. Months rolled by, and I honestly thought we were just your regular happy family. I left my phone charging in the den, and she kept hers in the guest room, which doubled as the spot where the kids used the computer. One night, I was updating the software on the computer when I noticed a little glow from her work phone. She always kept it face down, which I thought was weird, but not weird enough to question until that night. Curiosity got the better of me, and I flipped it over. That was when I saw the message, bold as day, asking her when she wanted to be taken care of again, but in language way filthier than that. And of course, it was from Perry. The whole world just stopped spinning. I sat there frozen, my mind racing, trying to make sense of what I had just seen. At first, I thought maybe it was some mistake, like how could something like that pop up on her work phone? That would get someone fired in a heartbeat. Then the reality slammed into me like a truck. My wife was cheating on me. It is funny how your brain can suddenly connect dots you never even realized were there. All at once, I started remembering all the little things that never quite sat right but I had brushed off. She would step outside to take calls or reply to texts and always said it was to protect patient privacy. That made sense to me since schools have their own rules about student privacy, so I never pushed. Sometimes she would come home smelling like a man's cologne and claimed it was from helping lift a patient. I figured it was just part of the job, though I always thought it was strange it was the same exact cologne every time. Once the door flew open, there was no closing it. Suddenly, everything started to line up. Our sex life had cooled off to almost nothing, and she was constantly running off at weird hours to cover shifts for other nurses who called out. I remembered seeing Perry's name before too, and a quick call to the hospital confirmed he worked there. He was a doctor. For about a week, I was walking around like a zombie, trying to piece it all together. Then one day, one of our kids forgot a book in Carrie's car, so we swung by the hospital. Carrie had always told me personal visits were not allowed, but this was a good excuse. My kid went up to get her car keys since I had left mine at home, and I stayed down in the lobby, chatting with a nurse. We were joking about how work phones are supposed to make your job easier, but really they just make sure you are on call around the clock. That is when she casually mentioned that only the big bosses get work phones at the hospital. Regular nurses? They do not get a thing. Not even Carrie. That was all I needed. The next day, I took a personal day and sat down with a divorce lawyer. The news she gave me was like getting punched in the gut. We lived in a state where property is split right down the middle, and nobody cares who cheated. Carrie made less money, had been the one mostly taking care of the kids when they were little, and we had been married long enough that I would be on the hook for spousal support, a big chunk of my retirement, plus child support for the next 10 years unless I somehow managed to get joint custody. Worst of all, the lawyer told me that her cheating did not mean a damn thing in court. It would not help me at all. I felt like the floor had been ripped out from under me. There was only one person I could trust with any of this, a woman I had worked with for years, let us call her Anne. Anne had gotten married young, and her husband knocked up some other woman, so she knew exactly what I was feeling. She and I had always clicked when it came to work, and she was the only person I could talk to without losing my mind. I told Anne everything, and she gave me the advice that changed my life. She said, if you do not like the cards you have been dealt, shuffle the deck. That was the light bulb moment. My two biggest problems were that I made way more money than Carrie, and she had way more free time to play supermom. I could fix that. Those few years felt like walking barefoot on broken glass every single day. It was like clockwork. I could see it plain as day when she was coming or going after meeting up with Perry. There was this little spark in her eyes, some kind of secret satisfaction she did not even bother hiding, the kind of glow she never had when she was doing her schoolwork. I would either force a smile or just pretend I was too tired to notice. My temper got shorter than a matchstick sometimes, and the dumbest little things would set me off. A couple times, I nearly blew the whole act, had to bite my tongue until it practically bled instead of laying into her like she deserved. Through it all, Anne was the only one I could trust. She was my sounding board, my safe place to say all the ugly thoughts I could not say out loud to anyone else. I ended up recommending her for my old fast-track job, and she got hired on at the district office. Anne was sharp, always had been, and she worked her tail off. She just needed someone to open the door for her, and once she got inside, she made sure everyone knew she belonged there. People even patted me on the back for bringing in such a good hire. Somewhere along the way, and I kind of found our own little piece of comfort together. It was not some crazy passionate fling you would see in a movie. It was two tired, broken people giving each other whatever scraps of kindness and warmth we could find. If it had not been for Anne, I do not think I could have pulled off acting like the clueless husband. Every time Carrie came back from sneaking around with Perry, grinning like she just won the lottery, I was able to smile right back at her because I had someone too. It took Carrie 3.5 years to get that Master of Science in Nursing degree, and once she did, she got a big promotion at the hospital. Her paycheck shot way past mine, which was exactly what I needed. When me and the kids threw her a dinner to celebrate, I cracked a joke about her being the big breadwinner now, and she laughed right along with me, even tossed back that maybe I should just stay home with the kids full time. About a month after that dinner, I went straight back to my lawyer. She did not remember me at first, but once I filled her in on the whole situation and how the money balance had flipped, she went to work. Papers were filed, and when the kids were spending time at my mom's place, I had Carrie served right there at our front door. I let the deputy in, pointed straight at her, and he handed her the papers. She looked confused at first, but I stood right there and told her I knew everything about Perry, about the cheating, all of it. I did not even tell her how long I had known, just that it was over and she was free to run off with her doctor boyfriend. She screamed, she tried to talk her way out of it, and then she made the dumbest move possible. She charged at me like she was going to hit me right there in front of a deputy. He stepped between us and told her flat out that women go to jail for domestic violence just like men do. Then he gave her some advice: pack a bag and find somewhere else to stay. Carrie left that night after swearing she would not tell the kids about her affair. I kept my mouth shut, but my mom did not. She told my sister, who told her kids, who told my kids' cousins, and well, you can guess how long it took for my own kids to find out. Within a few days, they knew the whole story, that their dad was divorcing their mom because she had herself a boyfriend. In the end, the court gave me full custody of the kids since I was already the one handling most of their day-to-day life. I got to keep the house too, as long as I refinanced it and bought Carrie out of her share. The judge ordered her to pay child support, and I used that as leverage to get her to walk away from any claim to my retirement money. I took out a new mortgage. Banks were practically throwing loans at people back then, and with a little help from my folks, I bought her out of the house and my retirement account. The day she signed off on all the paperwork, cutting every financial tie between us, I felt like I could finally breathe for the first time in years. I took Ann out to celebrate that night, because she had been my rock through every single miserable moment. I will admit it, I cried plenty of times in Ann's arms over those years. She is the only reason I stayed sane. After a while, Ann and I got married, and she earned herself a promotion too. The district ended up asking me to come back to my old job, and with the dust settled, I was happy to do it. Carrie and I actually managed to get along okay after the divorce. We even took the kids to some family therapy so we could figure out how to handle the whole co-parenting thing without making their lives harder. The first few months were rough on Carrie though. The kids grilled her pretty hard, asking why she needed some other man when their dad was always right there. Between them and the therapist, she got a thorough dressing down, and for once, I did not have to say a word. Carrie ended up missing out on a lot of time with the kids, partly because of her new work schedule, but honestly, it made me feel bad sometimes. I told the kids to at least call her more, even if they did not feel like visiting her. When Carrie found out I had proposed to Ann, she actually congratulated me. I told her she should go ahead and marry Perry if she wanted to. That is when her whole face fell, and she told me Perry had dumped her for some younger nurse at the hospital. Apparently, Carrie's new position meant she was always busy, and when they did have time to see each other, she was not as much fun anymore. The same woman who tore my whole world apart stood there, waiting for me to feel sorry for her. I could not. All I had left for her was the weight of years spent knowing another man was sleeping with my wife, years where I could not eat, years of dealing with high blood pressure and explaining to my doctor it was not my job stressing me out. Even my dentist warned me about grinding my teeth so bad I would need implants if I kept it up. Hell, there were even times I had to sleep with Carrie just to keep up the act. I always found some excuse to use condoms, said it was to spice things up, or that I was worried about a bladder infection, then I would run off and get tested for every disease under the sun before I would touch her again. But in the end, every bit of that pain was worth it. Sure, she got a chunk of money when I bought her out, but she is trickling that back to me through child support. And she lost everything else. Her kids only see her a couple weekends a month and a few holidays. Perry left her, and he was no prize either, twice divorced with 5 kids and drowning in alimony and child support payments. I kept my house, my paycheck, my retirement, my kids, and I got Ann. And you know what? I am actually happy. If that is not the best revenge, I do not know what is.